In this episode, we have Dr. Glenn Vo. He is a practicing dentist, best-selling author, speaker, and industry influencer. As the creator of Nifty, Thrifty Dentist, he has created a social media platform that reaches over 60,000 dental professionals. Dr. Vo became a U.S. Today best-selling author with his debut novel, 2612 Cherry Hill Lane, and a Wall Street Journal best-selling author with his business book, Industry Influencer. He recently released a dental business book called Nifty Thrifty Dentist, Growing Your Practice by Prioritizing What Really Matters. Dr. Vo also launched Dental Lifestyle Magazine, a quarterly publication that is distributed to dental practices nationwide. Dr. Glenn Vo is an owner partner with MB2 Dental and continues to run a multi-million-dollar practice in Denton, Texas. Welcome to the show, Dr. Glenn Vo. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Closing the Deal Dental Podcast. I'm your host, Elijah Desmond. I am the co-founder and co-CEO of Dental Pitch Brokerage, and we have with us today an amazing guest, Dr. Glenn Vo. How you doing, Glenn?
Hey, what's up, Elijah? Super excited to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Glenn, you and I have done so many things together. It's been amazing to watch your journey, from, I think, 7 years we're on. Man, I can't wait till I can brag on a decade. But yeah, it's been 7 years. It could have been 8, but it's been amazing to see you on your journey and also to see you go through a successful transition with your dental practice. You have so many people that look up to you, that are following you, and unfortunately, none of them got to hear you do a walk-on song. And so, if you were to resell your practice, and essentially this is what you have built, your amazing wife, Susan, has built, and you had this opportunity to have one walk-on song, and you're walking on in front in a private room with 10 buyers, what would that walk-on song be and why?
Man, that's gonna. Why are you asking such a hard question there? I mean, there's so many different songs, man. There's so many different genres. I mean, I'm a fan of music, right? Pop, hip hop, country, everything. I mean, I am from Dallas, Texas. And I feel like a lot of times when people think of Texas, they think about it's all country music there. But there's a lot of amazing artists that come out of Texas, right? So, man, that's a hard one, man. You put me on the spot. Can I answer that later, or do I have to give you something?
I'm going to ask you to give me something. I mean, it's a tough one, and it's supposed to be on the spot. You got to have a best favorite song. Come on. Okay,
so the song that honestly just came to my head right away when you said that was Jump Around by House of Pain. Okay, now it's really old school. I mean, you probably don't remember it. People who are working in your studio probably don't remember it. But I mean, that was the jam way back in the day. I would say early 90s. And Elijah, what, you were like in preschool or something during that time or something? I don't know. But that came up. And the reason being is because I'm all about just energy and positivity. And whenever that song comes on, you can't help but get in a better mood, right? And that's all me. So that was the first thing that popped in my head. But I'm sure as we talk, as we go through this podcast, I'm gonna be like, oh no, I got another song. But that was the first thing that popped in my head.
Awesome. I love the song, and I actually do know it. I happen to be a DJ, Glenn. Not that you've never. I mean, Glenn doesn't stay up late enough to hear me DJ. Everybody else is late at night. Glenn's like, all right, buddy, let's go to the best dinner ever, probably a Korean barbecue. And after that, I'm going to catch you in the morning. He's already got his gym on and game face in the morning. So anyhow, I am very familiar with the song Jump Around. I might play it for you at the Florida Dental Association as well. But hey, let's get into it. Look, most people in dentistry, I'm going to call it 80% of people know who you are. For those 20% who don't, can you give everybody a little background on who is Glenn Vo? Who's Mr. Nifty Thrifty?
Yeah. So I'm a dentist. I'm actually still practicing, not as much, but practicing dentist. And I'm someone who I like to connect people together, whether it's people together, companies together. I like to connect people together to create win-win relationships. And that's really what I do with Nifty Thrifty Dentists. A lot of times people are thinking like, hey, is it a group to save some money? Is it a group to just learn how to like cheap your way through dentistry and whatnot? It has nothing to do with that. It's all about just getting people together, creating connections and creating win-win relationships. And honestly, that's how I've always done business, whether it be in my dental practice or in my other businesses. That's how I connected with people when I was in college, when I was in dental school. And so for me, Nifty Thrifty Dentists, being Nifty Thrifty, it's not a slogan, it's a way of life. You know, I grew up with, immigrant family. We didn't have much growing up. When I was in school, I had to work 2 jobs, put myself through school. So I had to be Nifty Thrifty to make sure, ends meet. I mean, my parents did the same thing. And so that kind of translated, whether, you can take somebody out of the hood and put them in nice places, but their mindset is still back in the hood, right? Like if they grew up with little to no resources, no matter how successful you become, you never lose those things, right? You grew up in that. And so that's what Nifty Thrifty is about. I'm a connector of people. That's how I've like grew my business. And, when people ask me that, I told them that's really, if you strip everything away, the titles, the accolades, it's really about connecting people and creating win-wins.
Awesome. So Glenn, we're interviewing in this series dentists who have sold their practice to a group or private practice, and both small and large. And I guess if you could tell all of the dentists who are listening in, tell them specifically about your practice in general, number of ops, size of the practice, how long you had it, and what made you want to sell.
Yeah. So I had a startup practice. Actually, I still do. I'm actually still part owner of my practice in Denton, Texas, which is about 30 minutes north of Dallas-Fort Worth. It's in a college town. It was a startup practice my wife and I started. And what's funny is when I initially started the practice back in 2009, it was a 5-op practice. It was a 5-op practice. We started it, built it from the ground up. And I remember when walking through, like about 3 years later, walking through a trade show, and I saw a Heartland Dental booth. And I came up there and I was like, hey, just what does it take to have Heartland want to buy your practice? And then at that time, this is way back then, they're like, if you're collecting about 700,000, have at least 7 ops, we would be interested. And I listened to them. Now, why is this important? Because this is actually going to set the stage to when I decided to partner up with MB2. So I listened to them and I said, okay, I have 5 ops. My production is actually there, but I only have 5 ops. And a lot of these groups want to be able to grow the practice. And so I was already thinking about either moving my practice or possibly expanding. And so when I told the landlord, I was like, hey, I'm going to probably look at another space. I want to let you know. I had a few years left on my lease. They're like, wait, hold up. Your next door neighbor is leaving. Man, we will give you a killer deal to take over that space. Why would they do that? Because guys, landlords want stable tenants that don't cause drama, that stay there for a long time. That's why they love dentists, right? And so I got a killer deal and I expanded to 10 ops. And so that's the thing. Like I tell a lot of doctors, eventually you're going to sell, right? I mean, dentists, our careers are like professional athletes. You go up, you hit a peak, and then eventually you're going to keep going down because dentistry is a very physical profession, right? Like you can only work so much and you can only work so fast, and you'll hit a peak and you start going down. The problem is people sell when they're here. When they really should think about selling when they're up here, when they actually have some leverage, right? And so that's what happens. So I kind of wanted to set the stage there and then let you ask some follow-up questions. But that's what got me to thinking. And now it's not like I was going to sell right away, but I knew eventually I would. And I knew from that rep at Heartland, I don't even know who he was, but I just remember he said 7 ops. I was like, you know what? I'll do 10 ops, right? And honestly, when it got to the point where I was negotiating with MB2, they love that. They're like, dude, you got 10 ops? Dude, you got room to grow? Like, they love that. And so that's something for, even if you're not even thinking about selling right now, you got to think about the end, right? You got to think about, people talk about like, you need to think about retirement way before you're ready to retire. Because if you wait till then, it's way too late. You got to start thinking earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree, Glenn. And you're spot on. Something that when I'm on stage and I'm talking to the dentists that are considering selling, that's the one biggest thing, one huge thing I tell them is the amount of operatories in general, especially if you're selling in the group space, the DSO, emerging group, mid-size, large group space, even PE. They really want you to have actually a minimum of 5. They're not typically even looking at you below 5. Ideal is 6 or 7 or more. That 6 to 7 number is really ideal. They will still buy a 5. And if you're in 4, they're thinking, man, I don't have that much room to grow. So thank you for that. The next question, Glenn, is who did you decide to sell to and how has it been working with them?
Yeah. So I ultimately decided to sell. Well, I wouldn't say sell, partner with MB2. Now, here's the thing. Whenever you partner or sell to someone, that's like a major decision, right? It's not always about who gives you the most money. It's really the terms post-sale that you need to look at. For me, to be honest, when I decided to explore the MB2 opportunity, I wasn't even interested in selling. That's the thing. And so a lot of times people are like, man, I'm not going to even talk to these people because I'm not interested. Look, guys, when I was going down this road, I wasn't even thinking about selling. Honestly, I just wanted to learn about how MB2 worked. And honestly, the founder of MB2, Dr. Villanueva, he was someone I wanted to pick his brain. I wanted to meet him. And what better way to meet someone than to talk to someone about what they love to do, right? Their core business. But as I started talking, I was like, you know what? I think I can do this. I think I should do this. I'm still practicing. My wife's practicing, and we're still practicing. It's not like we're gonna sell and just go drink pina coladas, But we wanted an exit where, a lot of times people sell and then they just walk out the door. So it's almost like you sell and then drops, right? Man, I wanted an exit that just kind of like, when someone lands a plane really good, like I'm talking about a soft landing. I'm not talking about like someone opened the door and kicked your butt out of there, right? And so that's when we started talking to MB2. And when I started listening to them and what they had to offer, for me, now some people, when they affiliate, they're thinking like, I need someone to help me grow it, right? I didn't need that. I had that under control. But what got my ear was the ability to invest in their core company. And that's, for me, was the reason why I went with MB2 and the reason why I'm still with them and happy. Everything's going pretty good. Everything they told me they were going to do and would honor and allow me to do, they stuck with it. They have not gone back on their word at all. I told them, hey, look, guys, I'm like backtracking out of the op. And they're like, okay, we'll get some people to replace all those things. We're not going to call you back in. And they have not. So it's been really good. But I say that by letting everyone know that this is something that you really need to think through and you need to make sure you're in alignment. Like I knew what I was walking into. Some people, they just kind of like, oh, hey, it looks kind of good. You need to know what you're walking into. And there's a situation for everybody. There's a group for everybody. So there's a lot of good groups out there. Just understand what the expectations are and what your expectations are.
I think that's awesome. And something I want to touch on, Glenn, is you specifically said, this is who I've partnered with. This is who I've affiliated with. And you also said earlier in your story that you first walked up to the Heartland booth and they said, look, we need you to be at 7 operatories and 700,000. And you said, I got the 700,000 passed already. However, the 7 operatories is stuff I need to grow to. And this is a point that I had just made actually on Gary Bird's SMC podcast, which I had with, it was called, his name is Nate, and it's called Say No to the DSO. And we talked about all different types of models because I believe in dentistry, period. I don't care if you're selling to a private equity firm, a large size DSO, mid-sized DSO, which both are typically backed by private equity, an emerging group, or a private practice dentist. I see them for everybody. But something that was really important that you just made a clear differentiation of was that there is, when there's a full buyout and then you have a practice that you have affiliated with or you partnered with. And ultimately, when you have a full buyout, the practice is being bought as a whole. You're not keeping any of it. When you have a partnership or an affiliate, you're affiliating with another group, you're essentially selling part of yours. And sometimes you have the ability to invest in the holding company or the holdco, which is what you did. And I'm super excited to hear that that went really good for you. If there was anything that you could have did differently, is there?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I would have had you broken the deal, man. I probably would have made more money, of course, but I just kind of had a lawyer who kind of looked over things, make sure. The thing is with having attorneys represent you, right? They just want to make sure that legally, like everything that the DSO or the DPOs promise you, it's there, and that there's not any funny business where you can lose money. They're not necessarily trying to get you the best deal. They're just working in their expertise, their legal expertise. Like, okay, this checks all the box. You're not going to get screwed over. That's what they're doing. But they're not looking for you to get the necessary, like, more money, right? So although I got a pretty good deal because I kind of knew enough, like, what the industry standards are, but honestly, and I'll just say this, not trying to be arrogant at all, but I'm a little different from the average dentist. And honestly, I think we both benefited. And I think that MB2 has definitely benefited of me joining their group. Okay. So with that being said, hey, fair play, I'm happy. But if I had a dental pitch brokerage handling this, I definitely would have made more money. But with that being said, that's the only thing I would do differently. I'm very happy. And honestly, it probably would have still gone to MB2 because it was beyond the money. I really like the people that ran MB2. And for me, I just like to get mentored by them. And Dr. Villanueva and Justin Puckett, the president, are great mentors. So no regrets, but, I probably would have had you guys do it for me.
Yes, well, thank you. I think it's really important to understand, though, that there are many groups that are out there that are buying. And I'm just going to say groups for the point of this podcast. Groups to me means emerging groups, big groups, small groups, large DSOs, and call them groups. And understand that if you've seen one DSO, you have seen one DSO. I will also be very clear that you definitely want to be aware that there are some groups that you do not want to work with. And I can tell you with full confidence that MB2 is a group that you would want to work with. We currently work with MB2 ourselves. We have over 60 buyers in total that are groups. And we also work with private practice dentists as well that are buyers, but over 60 groups. And MB2 is one of our buyers, and I have nothing but good things to say about them. And I'm glad it seems that you have the same now. Now, Glenn, besides having somebody to negotiate the deal on your behalf, right, is there anything that you would recommend them to prepare when it comes to selling, say the 6 months before selling or a year before selling? What would you tell them to prepare prior to the sale?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, the biggest thing is your mentality, your approach to this. Like, if you feel like you're ready to go, there's no like dipping the toe in the water. And I'll tell you why that's really important. Because here's the thing. If you go and you work with Elijah or anybody else, and you say, I'm ready to go, and they put all this effort into it, and all these buyers come in, they do their due diligence, and they're ready to make an offer, and you decide to, well, no, I'll change my mind. The thing is this. You can only do that so many times. Let me use an example that everyone can understand. Imagine you're trying to buy a house, okay? And you have a deal with the homeowner, your realtor has everything else, and they back out. Or they say, hey, I want something else. And then you play along and they just keep on doing it to you. You being the buyer, if you're buying this house, would you want to go back and buy that house? Probably not. So the reason why I say that is the dental community is really small. If you're not sure and you're just kicking the tires, then don't waste people's time. You know why? Because when you are ready, they're not going to take you seriously. And if they don't take you seriously, that ultimately hurts how much money you can get for your practice. So the main thing is, before you find the right broker, before you clean up your AR and do all these different things, mentally ask yourself, am I ready to take this next step? Because if you're not, dude, don't waste anyone's time, because the word will get out that you're one of those people, and you might not be able to work with dental pitch brokers. You'll end up working with someone else. And ultimately, the person who gets hurt is you. So that is my biggest advice.
So my thought is, if I was going to tell a seller to do something differently, one of the biggest things is focus on the AR. And that AR at the end is something that's very important. Everybody says, I have amazing AR. I mean, we're the best at collections ever. We receive everything up front, et cetera, et cetera. Then all of a sudden, we pull their AR report, and they're actually missing between $50,000 and $250,000. And I just want to make a quick, drop some quick knowledge bombs here. That let's just say you have $100,000 in accounts receivable. Say if the sale of your dental practice would have been $2 million, they're going to add that AR at the end, and they're going to give you a percentage of that according to the days that it's outstanding. So let's just say it's 50%. That means that you can get $2,050,000, right? That was what your sales price would be. Now, if you get your AR cleaned up in advance and you're working with a brokerage firm that also helps with the AR piece and refers you to the correct companies, what happens is that $50,000 is added straight to your adjusted EBITDA. So that means the multiple of EBITDA that you will get will be, we'll call it 5 or 6 or 7. It's going to be 6 times 50,000. So your sale now will be $2.3 million. Huge difference. Another piece, or an example of something that I would tell a dentist who's looking to sell, is if you don't use a broker, at the minimum, do these two things. Very important that there's these 2 things that you do. Number 1, get a quality of earnings light done for your practice, because remember, the person that is buying your practice is going to get a quality of earnings done, and they're the one that's buying your practice. That's like going and selling your house and not having, not knowing how much your house is worth, but just saying, all right, buyer, give me a best offer. It makes sense for you to get a quality of earnings, and that's what we do as well. Is we recommend that they get a quality of earnings. The last thing is, if you're not going to use a brokerage firm, go and find 3 dentists who have successfully sold to that group and ask them how their life is post-sale. Ask them how their life is, and that's really going to help you a lot in deciding if that is the person that you want to sell to or not. Glenn, next question. You're big on teams and communication and relationships and people in general. Can you tell us how your teams reacted to the sale, how you went about telling your team about the sale or the partnership, and how did your patients react?
Yeah. So the thing is that as far as my team, I actually didn't even tell them anything until we were about to, we told them after we signed on the dotted line. And actually, MB2 sent some team members to kind of explain things. And honestly, I said, you can send them, but they're going to want to hear from me. And so I didn't tell them any, because there's really no reason to tell your team before anything's done, because you're just going to get people all riled up. You're going to get them all worried. You're going to distract them. Nothing, you don't have to say anything until you actually sign on the piece of paper. And that's what I did. And what we did is we had a great lunch. And I told them what we're doing. I really just told them that I'm still involved, right? I'm partnering. I'm not selling and leaving. We are partnering because we feel like we can get our practice to another level, and that we believe in MB2 and that we're going to get to another level. And once we explained that, the team got excited. The team got excited because I wanted them to be a part of it. And that's the thing. Like, when you're ready to let your team know that you're about to partner or sell, the goal is that you want to help the practice get to another level. You want all your team members to get to another. We're all going to get to another level by this change, by this pivot. And they already knew that I was a type of person type of practice owner that always wanted to level up. whether that be coaching, whether that be going to different events like Smiles at Sea or whatnot. Like I always wanted to help level up the practice. As far as the patients go, honestly, I didn't even tell the patients. To this day, I mean, everything is still the same. That's the great thing about MB2, that the name of the practice is still the same. Dr. Glenn Vo and Dr. Susan Tran are still there. So everything is still the same, you know. Now, for someone who is going to change their name, then yeah, I mean, that would be different. But for us, the great thing is that we didn't have to change anything. So the way we transitioned, actually, it exceeded my expectations. I didn't think it was going to be that good and that easy, but it was.
It's awesome. You know, that can be very difficult for a lot of people, including team members, that transition. And I think it's, once again, it's very important that you're telling your team, especially if you plan to stay, is I'm not leaving and I'm partnering. And there is a really, really big difference there. And, you know, I think people in general are afraid of just change. Is there anything that you said besides I'm staying to reassure the team that like there was going to be massive changes, and was there massive changes?
Well, so I told them that there wasn't going to be massive changes, that at the end of the day, who you need to talk to, the practice owners, we're still going to be here. The way they do their job is not going to change, right? And any changes that we implement are changes that I am 100% behind. And I think that's really important. You have to let the team know that any changes that happen is because I want it to happen too. Like I'm watching your back, and anything that changes is because I wanted it to do that. So as far as any major issues, not at all. Not at all. Honestly, I did not even have anyone leave post-sell because of the change. Nothing happened, right? So I was lucky. I had a good team. But I would encourage everyone, even before you're even thinking about possibly affiliating with a DSO or even selling, it's probably good to have open communication with your team. So if that's something you don't have right now, and you're thinking maybe down the line you might do this, you probably want to work on the communication with your team. And really just having times where, you know, maybe it's team meetings where you can be open and honest and have them share how they feel about the practice without fear of like repercussion, right? If you make it a safe space, then this type of conversation is extremely easy.
Got it. Now, there are dentists that want to, as I said, sell their practice as a whole. And there's other dentists who are like, you know what? I actually think there's a lot of runway to grow in this practice. I've just been stuck at, you know, $1 million or 1.5 or even $3 million. I know that there's a way that we can grow this practice further. And that is why they affiliate or partner with another group. Another reason why they partner with another group is there is another opportunity to have a second financial windfall. And it is public knowledge, as press releases out, that MB2 actually has had those. And so can you explain, I know you can't tell in detail about any type of percentages or anything like that, but for somebody who doesn't understand what a second financial windfall is, can you explain what that looks like for the dentists that are listening who are like, man, I need to hear of an actual company who's did it, because I know MB2 has.
Yeah. So what MB2 has gone through is something called a recapitalization. And all that means is that the PE partner, the private equity partner that is partnered with MB2, that particular private equity partner is ready to move on. And that's what private equity does. They invest in companies, and once the company gets to a certain level, someone else wants to come in and take over that spot, right? And they sell out of their position, right? This happens all the time in business. Now, what's unique about MB2 and something that you need to ask before you partner with any DSO is ask about the leadership and who actually makes all the decisions. So at MB2, Dr. Villanueva, who is a dentist, he is the leader of MB2, and everybody at MB2 at corporate, they work for us, the practice owners, right? The partners. That's why we call it power to the partners. Now, not every group is like that. But basically, the way we have it set up is PE doesn't come in and tell us what to do. Now, PE is interested in our numbers, right? That's what a good partner does. Are you growing? Are you doing things right? They are interested in that. But the thing is that at MB2, we don't have that problem. And so PE doesn't come in and say, hey, Dr. Vo, you got to practice this way. Or, hey, Dr. Villanueva, you need to tell all the doctors to do this. They don't do that stuff. They supply the money and they basically just give advice, but they don't get into the operations. So what happens is that we've had, multiple different PE partners that invested and that helped us grow, and then they've exited. Now, each time you go through a recap, you have an opportunity to sell more equity at the practice level. Now, most deals at MB2 is 60-40, right? MB2 will purchase 60% of the practice. The owner doctor retains 40%. Why? Because our model is we want dentists to be our partners. We don't want someone to sell and walk away. That's other groups. We don't want that. We want you to say, because you help make that practice successful, we want you there, but we want to help you and get you to another level. So first transaction, you sell 60%, and basically you take some chips off the table, right? But here's the great thing about MB2. You take some chips off the table, but then you work with MB2 to grow that practice even more, so that the 40% you have ends up being a lot more valuable down the line because you're part of MB2 and you're still growing the practice. When we go through a recap, you have the opportunity to sell more equity. So you can sell another 20% and retain 20%. To be considered an owner at MB2, they require that all owner doctors retain at least 15%. So you can go through a couple of these recap sales and take more chips off the table. And so what's amazing is that you're going through multiple exits, and then you have the last 15%. And when you're ready to leave, you're ready to leave. But I'm going to tell you that there's so many exciting things going on that not too many of the owner doctors leave. We're all still a part of it. We want to keep growing, and we have a vested interest, right? Because we're able to invest in MB2, we have a vested interest in everyone's practice. Like Dr. Wynn over on the other side of DFW, I want him to do well. You know why? I'm invested in MB2. I need him to do well, and he needs me to do well. And so it's a great model, and I know there's other models that are very similar. But as far as MB2 goes, when you partner with MB2, you have multiple chances, opportunities to sell more equity and to go through multiple exits.
That's awesome, Glenn. That was very well described. And for those of you who are listening, I won't ask Glenn this question because I think it's asking too much, so I won't. However, I'm still going to educate you on this. A lot of times when you partner with a group, such as MB2, but I'm not naming MB2, you keep 40%. And it is in the contract, in the LOI, okay, and the asset purchase agreement, but specifically the LOI, it will say, you retain, say, 40%. However, when we recap, the max you're going to be capped out as a certain multiple. So let me give an example. Let's just say if you sell your practice for a 6x multiple. So that means if the EBITDA of your practice is, we'll say 400,000. Okay, 400 times 6 is $2.4 million. Now you're going to get 60% of that. Okay, of the 2.4 million, you're not going, that's the value of your practice. You're not going to get the 40%. You're going to retain that. However, the group that you sold to is, because they're way bigger, they have a way bigger EBITDA. Okay, they're going to then be worth a higher multiple. So let's just make it so it's easy numbers. Let's just say they're worth a 12 times multiple. In the agreement, they can put that you're capped at, on the second exit, or the recap, second financial windfall, you're capped at, call it a 10 times multiple. So that means that they would get the difference between 10 and 2. Okay, they can do the same thing if there's any further financial windfalls. But the kicker is that those terms are the terms of the agreement. If you have a broker working with you, no matter what group you're selling to, we negotiate the terms of the agreement. And if I wanted to, I could say, hey, I don't like it so that they can't get above a 10. How about a 12? And they may say, you know what? We'll allow a 12 on this turn, but if there's a future turn, we're capping it at that. But but you wouldn't really know to negotiate that if you did not work with a broker. So there's terms of the contract, and the terms are sometimes more important than money, especially if you're in a situation like this where you're getting a chunk up front, and then there's terms on how you get the rest of your money. And sometimes you don't get any because it was a bad deal. MB2 happens to be an amazing organization. So these things are coming to reality. If history repeats itself. And so I think it's important for everybody to know that those are the terms of the contract. Glenn, I'm going to ask you one more thing. When you went through this transition, I mean, you are Mr. Entrepreneur yourself. You're a best-selling author. You got multiple endeavors you're doing. Did the sale allow you to do anything different with your life?
I mean, 100%. I mean, honestly, now that I affiliated with MB2, I knew that I could step back a little bit and have them pick up the slack. And so that allowed, absolutely, but it also allowed us to tap into, again, it's almost a group of other like-minded dentists and tap into their genius, right? And tap into their networks. And the thing is that the DSO that you end up working with, they have connections that most doctors don't have, right? They have built-in advantages because of economies of scale that you don't have. And so it's good to know that someone has that leverage other than myself and that I can lean on them. So it allowed me to do a lot of the things that I've dreamed about doing and to do that a little bit sooner. And so whenever someone asks me, they're like, oh, you're young. Why did you end up selling? Why did you even do? I was like, look, I mean, I didn't intend that way. But once I went down this road and understood how it worked, it made all the sense in the world. And I tell doctors, I was like, unless you are like immortal, like unless you know you're going to live forever, then you don't know what's around the corner, right? And so you should start thinking like this. I still own my practice. We're still growing it. There's another exit around the corner, but I've been part of MB2 since 2020. I joined right before the pandemic hit, right? So great timing there. And we're still in it. So if you think that you have 10 years left in your practice, that's actually the time you need to start thinking. You don't want to think about this when you have 1, heck, even 5 years left, because you're not going to be able to push that last mile to get it to where you want to go because you already have 1 foot out the door. So really, when you're thinking about affiliate, when you're thinking about, okay, I want to talk to Elijah and see what's out there, you need to do it while you still have some gas in the tank. Not until the end. To the end, you're going to end up taking whatever someone gives you. You got to be able to say, hey, you know what? Like, I still have a lot to offer, and I need these DSOs to know that I still do. That's going to give you the best deal. So that's probably one of the biggest advice I can give anyone. Like, don't wait until you think you're ready to leave. Do it way before then and see what's out there.
That's great advice. There are doctors that call us on a regular basis and they say just that. Hey, we're looking to sell the practice and retire. And I say, like, I love the word retire, but like, do you mean like retire from working your business or retire as a dentist? And when they say both, my heart just breaks for them, because the reality is that if you want to make the max dollar, unless you're not practicing already, because there are situations in which if you're not practicing in the practice and you actually, you have a practice that other associates are in and they're working, you're not practicing, that is the worst time to leave, is when you're actually done and ready to leave. Now, I will tell you there are exceptions to every rule. We work throughout all 50 states and we're getting into Canada, which is awesome. And I will tell you that there are some states that we do have buyers that it is okay to leave the practice and they have an associate coming in. But I can also tell you very clear, you won't get the same amount of dollars if you would stay. But there are situations where an associate can come in and take your place, so you can have a slow exit. I've also had situations where we have the associate who is actually, the associates are working in the practice, could be 2, 3, 4, 5, however many, but that dentist who's captaining the ship, they still want that dentist to stay on for potentially a year to 2, just to make sure it's a smooth transition. So those are all the really, really good facts, Glenn. Speaking of the things that, the sale has allowed you to do personally, is there any personal initiatives that you've taken on, like some interesting businesses or something that you want to tell the dentists who are listening to this podcast about before we end the podcast?
Well, I mean, thank you so much, Elijah. First of all, for allowing me to come on and sharing my story. I think a lot of times people think that whenever they sell to a DSO or affiliate, that they're done with dentistry, and that's so far from the truth. There's a lot of people who are, but it's so far the truth. And there's so many opportunities there. And for me, my hope for every single dental practice owner who's watching your podcast, I want them to realize is that every situation is different, but there is great value into, basically affiliating with a DSO earlier than when you're ready to walk out, because who knows, maybe you want to open multiple practices and you want to leverage their resources to do that, right? There's so many opportunities. Don't be like some of these other dentists out there who they just make a blanket statement about DSOs. They're like, oh, this DSO is bad. They're all like that, right? The people who say they're all like that, don't listen to that person, right? Because again, those blanket statements are not only harmful in the DSO space, but in life in general. When someone says they're all like that, you shouldn't take those people seriously. So with that being said, that's what I want to share there. But I'm involved in, obviously, Nifty Thrifty Dentist is still a big part of my life. Dental Podfest is just an event that I'm able to spend a little bit more time on. And, whether you have a podcast or whether you love podcasts or you want to just connect with like-minded individuals, that's what that event's there. And I know, Elijah, you're a really big part of it as well. And I've just gotten the great opportunity to be able to invest in work and advise with different dental companies like Archie, which is one of the most amazing and up and coming cloud-based practice management softwares. I love dentistry, and this has given me the time and the resources to help level up the industry as a whole, whether it's through different events, whether it's through different platforms, equipment, supplies, or whatever it is. I just want people to have all the success and all the opportunities that maybe I had a lot of opportunities, but I want the next generation to have even more. So that's what I'm passionate about. And again, Elijah, thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. And for those of you who would like to get in touch with you, what is the best form of communication and how should they reach out to you?
I'm super easy to get a hold of, right? So if you're on LinkedIn, shoot me a message, Dr. Glenn Vo. If you're on Facebook, same thing, send me a DM. I know with Facebook, sometimes if we're not connected, it might send it to spam. So if you do that way, it might take a little bit longer. But the absolute easiest way is join my group, Nifty Thrifty Dentist. It's on Facebook. And just say, hey, make a post. Say, hey, Dr. Glenn Vo, I'm new to this group. I want to connect with you. And I'll see it. And we'll say what's up, So, again, join that group. There's so many amazing people there like Elijah that you can not only network with, but also learn from as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Glenn. It has been awesome having you. And thank you so much for telling the world your story about MB2 and your journey with them. All right, everybody. We'll see you on the next episode of Closing the Deal. Bye-bye.